Hey there, this is Chris Anderson, CE.Simgof. This is going to be very short, but very, very important. If you're looking in Unity at areas that you have modified with all this Blender work, and you go through the GSPro tools, the SetMesh up here, that's supposed to assign materials based on your theme to and important components to all of your meshes. Now, I've been doing this kind of bunker and other terrain work in Blender for about 3 courses now, and SetMesh has never worked well for me. I've always had to manually add some components to some various meshes or drag materials on. It leads to errors. You have to be really careful checking it. I figured, hey, I guess that's just the price I pay for wanting to do this extra work. Something about what I'm doing is breaking things. Well, guess what? I found out why. It has to do with the naming conventions. Now, I've never been the best at Unity. I know I've watched all the videos, I've published a few courses, but it's not my strong suit. Blender's more where I do the advanced stuff and have more knowledge. There is somebody who recently pointed this out to me, and it's someone who I was showing all this Blender work and talking about making new meshes and renaming things. And I'm not going to name names, but he never pointed out that I was naming things wrong or that this would be a problem. So now that I've figured out, I'm going back in and I'll show you what it is. Let's jump into Blender really quick. I've already talked enough. Here's the meshes. Now if you look at this, all these that we talked about renaming, of course F2 again is our shortcut for this. So F2 key, it pops up this thing. Now I was naming things. You can see this one's called Spline Hole 17 Bunker E. I was going through and naming things just, and I talked about this in a couple different videos. I was just naming things hole 17, bunker, whatever, or hole 17, fairway, right? That's how I'd been doing things. And I recently figured out that SetMesh is looking for things named spline. So if you just add the word spline over the top of everything, for instance, instead of hole 17, spline hole 17, and then you export and copy that over. Now when I go into Unity after pasting that, it didn't overwrite my file, right? Because this is a whole new mesh according to Unity, a whole new FBX file. So I'm going to have to go in here in this case. Now if you do this from the beginning, you won't have to worry about this. But I'm going to grab hole 17 fairway, throw it in there, delete that one. All right, so now spline hole 17 fairway. If I go up to SetMesh and I've got my theme already loaded, it's going to go through the SetMesh. And as you can see, it finds that as fairway and adds it. So now I'm going to go back in and change these bunkers to spline in their name, and you can see I have to change what material is assigned. Here's another thing. It found the spline in the bunker names here. This is the blend shape, so what's supposed to be deep rough. It found spline, so it did use SetMesh, but then it found the word bunker, so it assigned it a bunker texture. It wasn't just going by what I had given it as a material in Blender. So I think if you went into Blender and on this particular case you named these spline deep rough instead, it would find it. The other thing you can do though when you're done, if you've been consistent in naming bunker blend for all of these or whatever you name, if you type that in at the top of your hierarchy, it's going to find all that are blends. So you've got A, B, C, D here. And then you can just assign those very quickly by grabbing all of them in your hierarchy, whether it's 4 or 100 in your whole course, and just dragging over into your element 0, right? And then if you hit the X, it'll go back to your scene and you've replaced everything. So now you know the correct way to name things. I wish I would have known sooner. It would have saved me a lot of headaches. Be careful with your naming, people. It does matter.